Hello, I'm Sensei Alex Kikuyo. The title of today's talk is Don't Eat Your Own Vomit. Before we get into that, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. That way you'll be notified when I post talks in the future. If you wouldn't mind hitting the like button, that'd be great too. Many years after Buddha passed into parinirvana, there was a monk by the name of Upagupta who had taken over the Buddhist order. And Upagupta was special for a couple of reasons. First, he had an encyclopedic knowledge of the Buddha Dharma, and he was very skilled at explaining it both to monastics and lay followers in a way that made sense. In addition to this, Upagupta, due to his great understanding of karma, could look into the heart of any individual, determine where they were on their spiritual path, and create the exact conditions necessary for them to realize enlightenment. He was a very, very deeply realized and powerful individual. But he was still human, and he wasn't without his problems. One of his problems is that sometimes he had monks who misbehaved. Case in point, we're not told this individual's name in this story, but there was a monk who'd been practicing with Upagupta for many years, and he was right on the cusp of enlightenment. However, he had a deep attachment to good food and good drinks. In fact, his attachment was so great that sometimes he complained to lay followers if they gave him donations that he didn't approve of. Now, this is a problem for two reasons. First, as a monastic, the Vinaya requires him to gladly accept anything that is placed into his begging bowl. Second, there was the potential for him to create problems for the rest of the monastic community, because why would the lay followers want to support monks and nuns who were ungrateful for their donations? Clearly, Upagupta needed to do something. So, he looked into this man's heart, saw exactly what needed to be done, and he asked the lay people to bring 2 clay jars and place them in front of him. He had 1 jar filled with excellent food and excellent drinks, everything this particular monk desired. The second one he left empty. Then he had the monk stand in front of the 2 jars. Upagupta pointed at the one filled with good food and good drinks, and he said, "Eat." So the monk, you can imagine, thought that this was his lucky day, so he ate, and he drank, and he ate, and he drank, and then his stomach started to gurgle, but he couldn't stop himself. His attachments were such that he continued to eat and drink and eat and drink until finally he threw up everything he had consumed into the empty jar. Upagupta stood there in silence, the monk stood there in silence, and finally, right when everyone couldn't take it anymore, Upagupta pointed to the jar filled with vomit and said, "Eat." Now this monastic, for all of his faults, was a follower of the way. He wanted to obey his teacher, so he reached his hand into the jar, grabbed some vomit, brought it up to his nose, and right when he was about to take a drink, the smell overcame him, his stomach gurgled, and "I'm sorry, Venerable, I cannot." To which Upagupta replied, "What has been vomited up should not be eaten again." At that moment, the monk realized the error of his ways, saw the problem with his attachments to food and drink, let them go for the last time, and realized enlightenment. To understand what this story has to do with us in the present day, we just need to look at the second and third tenets of the 4 Noble Truths, which state, suffering is caused by desire. The way to end suffering is to end desire. Now, we can replace that word desire with attachment, and you'll probably see where I'm going with this. Now, to be clear, Buddha is not saying that all of our attachments, all of our desires are bad, or that we're bad people for having them. What he is saying is that actions have consequences, that our attachments have the potential to cause suffering both for ourselves and for other people. So as Buddhists, we investigate every single one of our attachments, determine which ones are causing suffering, and we let them go. Now, that sounds very simple, very easy, something that we could do in an afternoon. The problem is that we have a tendency, especially as Westerners, after we let something go because it's bad for us, we go away, we come back, and we pick it up again. This is us keeping in contact with the ex who broke our heart. This is us smoking one more cigarette before we quit. This is us lashing out on social media, even though we know that it's not good for our mental health. We do these things because we have something called FOMO, fear of missing out. Missing out on what the crowd is doing and missing out on pleasure, on sensual desires. We want to see, taste, touch, smell, hear everything. And it's hard to let go of our attachments because, well, do I really never want to experience this again? Thus, again, instead of understanding that this is a problem we should let go of, we pick it up thinking this time will be different. Like the monk in the story, we reach our hand into the jar and eat our own vomit. No, we shouldn't beat ourselves up about this. This is something that people have done for as long as there have been people on the planet. However, we should understand the harm we are causing to ourselves, to our loved ones, and we should remind ourselves that we have the choice to do things differently. We don't need to be a slave to our desires. True freedom for the Buddhists is not found in experiencing every single thing that life has to offer. Rather, true freedom for us is in letting go of the things that harm us so that we can live a life of inner peace, of compassion, of equanimity. This is why the practices of meditation and sutra study are so important, because they help clear our minds of the defilements of greed, anger, and ignorance, so that we can once again see and study our attachments more clearly, so that we can let them go again and again and again until finally, like the monk in the story, we let them go and we decide we're not going to pick them up again. Amitabha.